I want to talk a little bit about the Aubrey Marcus situation that's going on, the controversy in the spiritual community. Now, I watched the podcast, and at first, I really wanted to sit with it. So I did. I sat with it, and by no means is this video meant to cast any sort of judgment. My first and foremost thought about this situation, if you guys aren't familiar with what's happening with him, basically he just came out, him and his wife came out and said that they are adding another individual, another woman into their marriage, and they're calling it like radical monogamy or something along those lines. But my first thought is, honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. I am not one to tell you or tell anybody what is right or wrong per se. I do respect the fact that they, or at least Aubrey in this situation, because there is some caveats to this. I feel as if Aubrey is trying to do the right thing and not being dishonest in his marriage. That being said, I do have a lot of issues with I almost feel as if the wife was persuaded into doing this when she really didn't want to. I think both of the women felt a little bit uncomfortable with the situation, especially the wife. And whenever I don't know if it was a therapist or a mentor or the fourth person that was in the interview, if you guys watch the video on YouTube, every time he talked, I physically got sick to my stomach. There is something about that man I just could not validate in my consciousness as a reliable outside perspective on the situation. I also want to point out that I don't think Aubrey Marcus is being 100% honest and truthful and living in integrity with himself. I think he carries a lot of shame. I think what they're trying to do is eliminate shame, but in turn, they're creating more of it. Now, all this being said, just because I'm saying something is not necessarily wrong, I'm saying that it's not necessarily the more spiritual path or the higher evolved consciousness path to take, in my personal opinion. Now, I can't remember where I heard this from. I heard it a long time ago, but a long time ago, I heard someone speaking about this, and they refer to polyamory or, having multiple partners as being like the base level of human existence. It's very natural. So it's easier. It's more natural. It's our instinctual drive in nature to be attracted to and with multiple partners or multiple people, right? Well, from this person's perspective, and what I believe as well, from a more evolved consciousness perspective, having one monogamous relationship is a higher form of spiritual evolution. It's more difficult. As most of you know, most of you that are on the spiritual path know that the spiritual path is not a path for the weak. That's why you see a lot of people that are reverting back to organized religion or Christianity or different sectors of Christianity or whatever the case may be. But you see a lot of people that enter the spiritual space and see how difficult it really is to live authentically, integrating what you're learning, not just absorbing knowledge, and making sure that you're living in alignment with what you're learning, right? You have to do shadow work. You have to look at yourself. You have to look at your subconscious. You have to live in integrity. And having a monogamous relationship or marriage is by no means easy because it bypasses our inherent physical nature to do so. And that's just backed up by science. Like humans, mammals, were not created to be with one partner only. I think there's only like one animal I'd have to look it up. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say there's only a select few number of animals that are actually monogamous and only have like one partner for their whole lives. But that being said, monogamy is a more difficult choice because it's a higher level of consciousness and spiritual evolution. Now, we are all human, we all make mistakes, and we're all here to learn, and we're all here essentially to be human. So that's why I wanted to start off this video by saying that I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. I think the most important thing in situations like that would be to live in integrity and fairness and equality. But I do feel very bad for the wife, and I can almost feel the pain in her energy and her aura and how difficult this was for her and continues to be for her. I also felt like the other woman felt extremely uncomfortable. That being said, to each their own. In my personal opinion, if you're on a spiritual path, it's about the union of a divine masculine and a divine feminine. That's just my own personal perspective, and one that I thoroughly believe wholeheartedly. So, I don't think it's anyone's place to judge them necessarily. I have empathy for them, and I feel like Aubrey himself is also hurting. I feel pain, and when I hear him talk, or when there's other podcasts that I listen to, mostly for the guests that he brings onto his podcasts, but I do feel like he is harboring a lot of guilt, pain, and unresolved or unintegrated spiritual work, but unresolved trauma or pain, right? So to each their own. So that's just my take.